Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Let's Build, the series where I build it and you improve upon it. So today, we are looking at the OTK machines that are Ancient Gears, as evident by the title. Ancient Gears started all the way back in the GX era, used by Professor Crowler in the anime, and proceeded to capture the hearts of a lot of fans, being a fan-favorite archetype who's gotten a cavalcade of support throughout the years. So, of course, as always, isn't that right, Mr. Mauser? We are going to put up the times for the profile and the replays for anybody who already knows about Ancient Gears and does not wish to listen to me try to explain them. But for everybody who doesn't know anything about Ancient Gears or is relatively new to the card game, which would mean you don't know much about Ancient Gears. Mauser, why am I killing this opening? Ancient Gears is an archetype of machine Earth attribute monsters that typically share one effect overall, and that is that when they attack, your opponent cannot activate certain types of effects, such as spell traps or monster effects, until the end of the damage step. This protection used to be really good in the era when Mirror Force and other combat or battle traps were prevalent, but over the time period and over the years, battle traps have become less and less relevant in the card game, thus giving their overall ability with their built-in protection to not really matter for much, causing the archetype to go into kind of a spiral. But the other thing that they're known for is piercing damage. Piercing being that when they attack a defense position monster, they still perform damage calculation basically as if the opposing monster was in attack position but using the defense. So the remainder of your monster's attack is dealt to damage as your opponent over their monster's defense. A long explanation for piercing, I guess.
Who's a good kitty? Who's a happy kitty?
Oh, you're not right now. Ancient Gears originally were just a big beater archetype until their later support introduced fusion monsters, and these fusion monsters radically changed the way that the archetype was played. And that is what we're looking at. Specifically, the deck we have built out today is Chaos OTK. Now, this Chaos isn't necessarily built around light and dark monsters, but instead it's just the name of the monster. It's Chaos, or Ancient Gear Chaos Max Giant, or some crap like that. I should know, but I don't. So let's head into the replays where you guys can check out the deck, see how it runs, before I explain how the deck runs overall. So let's build Ancient Gear. Alright, welcome to the deck profile for Chaos Ancient Gear Giant OTK, because that's its name and I totally didn't mess it up in the first part of the video. Absolutely didn't. You can check. Don't actually check, but you could check. So let's get through the deck profile before I start explaining overall the deck and how it runs. We're running one Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere mode, one Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon, 3 copies of Ancient Gear Golem himself, the starter of the archetype. Then you have your 3 Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound. Sounds like an innuendo. You have your 3 Ancient Gear Wyverns, 3 Ancient Gear Frames, 3 Ancient Gear Boxes, and 3 Ancient Gear Hunting Hounds for the monster line. For the spell lineup, you have 3 Overload Fusions, 3 Ancient Gear Catapults, 3 Ancient Gear Workshops, 3 Ancient Gear Fusions, 2 Twin Twisters, 3 Ancient Gear Fortresses, 2 Mound of the Bound Creator, and 1 Gear Town. And now for the small-sized extra deck that has a lot of room to be manipulated by you guys. You have yourself 2 Chaos Ancient Gear Giants, your main Windmaker. You have 2 Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem. You have yourself 2 Ancient Gear Megaton Golem. And then 2 Ancient Gear Howitzers, 1 Mrs. Radiant, and 1 Lanfurcus. So this is a OTK style deck. OTK being that you're going to kill your opponent in your first turn. This deck wants to go second, and then it wants to proceed to basically fusion summon Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, which just requires 4 Ancient Gear monsters, and it must be fusion summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. The main point is to get it out and then beat over your opponent's established board, causing a ton of damage. It is a 4500 attacker, so it can beat over most things, and it has an ability that it can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. So floating against this guy is not a good idea, and if they're put in defense position, he does inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. So trying to hide from him in defense mode does not work. And if you're thinking, well, they'll just, obviously activate their Fiendish Chain to stop him in his tracks, he is unaffected by spell trap effects. And your opponent's monsters cannot activate their effects during the battle phase. So even Utopia the Lightning is this guy's little bitch. So let's go over some of the cards and why they're in here. And then I'm going to try to be better about not reading off the cards and just kind of go over how they pertain to the deck in general. Winged Dragon of Raw Sphere mode is there to handle big boards that you actually can't beat over because they prevent you from doing things, such as establishing a board that would prevent you from being able to fusion summon, or if they have multiple negates that would prevent you from establishing your Chaos Giant. This is extremely effective against Thunder Dragon setups, where Thunder Dragons are going to drop multiple negates on their board. You can attempt to answer it with Sphere mode. Ancient Gear Reactor Dragon is fusion fodder. You will probably never summon him. He is fusion fodder. Ancient Gear Golem in this particular deck is fusion fodder. Again. Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound is primarily fusion fodder. If you're assuming this entire deck is just fusion fodder, you would be incorrect. So, we have Ancient Gear Wyvern, who is fusion fodder. Not really. Actually, this card is a searcher. When he is normal or special summon, you can add 1 Ancient Gear card from your deck to your hand, except itself. The downside is you cannot set cards the turn that you do this. This is a once per turn effect. The other effect is, of course, if he attacks, your opponent's monsters cannot activate their effects until the end of the damage step, but you are primarily not going to attack with Ancient Gear Wyvern very often, unless you're trying to do a mop-up and finish up. Instead, you are going to summon Ancient Gear Wyvern to search Ancient Gear Box. Ancient Gear Box is fusion fodder, and, of course, if he is added from the deck or graveyard to your hand, except by drawing it, of course, you can add one Earth Machine type monster with 500 attack or defense from your deck to your hand, except Ancient Gear Box. It is again a once per turn effect, so you will use it to search Ancient Gear Frame. So basically, if you open with the Ancient Gear Wyvern and your opponent does not have a hand trap to stop you or some form of negation, you will summon out Wyvern, search Box, search Gear Frame, and that is 3 of your 4 materials already collected. So overall, a pretty good nifty little chain of searching to get you set up. The other card here, Ancient Gear Hunting Hound. If it is normal summoned, you inflict 600 damage to your opponent. But more importantly than it or its attacking effect is that once per turn you can fusion summon one Ancient Gear fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials. So if you have 4 machines, or 4 Ancient Gear cards plus himself, being one of them, you can normal summon him, inflict 600 points of damage, and then proceed to fusion summon into Chaos Max or one of the others. So, as you can see, all of the Ancient Gears, for the most part, are all really focused around just getting 4 of them into your hand and then fusion summoning, or getting them into the field or graveyard. If you can get them into the graveyard, you have Overload Fusion to allow you to fusion summon one Dark Machine fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing the materials from your field or graveyard. So if you can get your graveyard set up or your field set up, you can Overload Fusion to bring back a game very well. It is the reason why we are running 2 Ancient Gear Giants, boys. I don't know why I cannot remember the words Chaos Ancient Gear Giant. Next up, we have Ancient Gear Workshop. Or not next up. We have Ancient Gear Catapult next up. Oh, god damn it. We have Ancient Gear Catapult. While you control no monsters, you can target a face-up card, destroy it, and special summon one Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. And you can banish it from the graveyard, then target one face-up card you control to destroy it, and special summon an Ancient Gear token. This allows you to get your fusion materials set up, especially since we are running Ancient Gear Fortress. That, 1, during the turn they are special summoned or normal summoned, your opponent cannot target Ancient Gear monsters you control with card effects, and they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, giving them valuable protection on the turn you summon them. So if this is already out on your field and you get out Mr. Giant, he can just go ahead and go straight to Pound Town without having to worry about being destroyed out the bat. But the more important part is that if it is destroyed in your spell or trap zone, say by a certain catapult, you can special summon one Ancient Gear monster from your hand or graveyard. You can also not special summon monsters for the rest of the turn, except Ancient Gear monsters. So what you'll do is, if your turn starts and you have this card, you can activate it, then activate Ancient Gear Catapult, assuming you have it, and they will both get you 1 monster on your field. That gives you 2 of your monsters for your setup, which will allow you to go into either the baseline fusion or a pretty good start into a later thing. Especially if you remember, one of those that you can special summon will be Wyvern, and then Wyvern will start its chain, allowing you to go into your 4 with ease with just a 2-card combo, assuming you drew absolutely no monsters. And then of course we also have Gear Town, a field spell, which normally allows you to allows both players to normal summon an Ancient Gear monster for 1 less tribute, but more importantly, when it is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon an Ancient Gear monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Now, the thing to look out for with Gear Town is it does not say ignoring its special summoning conditions. Some of the monsters cannot be special summoned, so you need to look out for that. But back up to Ancient Gear Workshop, you can target an Ancient Gear monster in your graveyard and add that target to your hand. This is arguably one of the least useful cards in the deck, in my opinion, but it can allow you to recoup a few of your resources, such as a Wyvern from your graveyard, or you can use it on a box and search out your frame. So then we have Mound of the not Mound of the Bound Creator. We have Ancient Gear. Why am I fucking up this deck profile so bad? Ugh. I know I'm tired, but I'm not that tired. Ancient Gear Fusion is basically a polymerization, but you can only use it for Ancient Gear Fusion monsters. But if you use an Ancient Gear Golem or an Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate's Pound, you can that you control, so it needs to be on the board, you can use the other materials from your deck. So, if you can only get out one monster, and it can be any monster, go get one of those two, special summon them to the board, and then use this to fusion summon out the rest of your things. Or fusion summon out your fusion monsters and go for the win. I'm fucking this all up. Next up, we have Twin Twisters. This is to help stop Mystic Mine from wrecking your day, because it does not matter how big or bad of a monster you special summon, it will not be able to attack. And if it cannot attack, you cannot OTK. So, Mystic Mine, and it also does stop some other shenanigans. Mound of the Bound Creator. Level 10 or higher monsters on the field cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. If a level 10 or higher monster on the field destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, the player who controlled the destroyed monster takes 1,000 damage. So, what are we going to use this for? Well, our big boy happens to be a 10. So, this makes the OTK easier to perform. The effect that allows you to add a divine monster is also useful in the deck. So, when it is on the field and is destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can add one divine monster from your deck to your hand. So, if you desperately need your raw sphere mode and you can get to it, you can Mound of the Bound Creator, destroy it, get your sphere mode, blow up their board. Distribute it on over. So something I forgot to mention, which is slightly useful, is Ancient Gear Frame's effect. I mentioned that you could search it, but I forgot to talk about him himself. You can discard one card to add one Ancient Gear Golem or one spell trap that specifically lists the card Ancient Gear Golem in its text from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn, of course. If it attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell traps until the end of the damage step to stop that 1600 beatdown from the sky. And if this face-up card in its owner's control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon up to 3 Ancient Gear Golems or Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pounds from your hand. It doesn't get used much. It's mostly fusion material, unless if you need to lead with it to get into your Ancient Gear Fusion, or more materials to get out your Golem. So we'll go over the extra deck. Your big boy, which I've already basically went over, of Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, is your win condition, and you want to go into him as often as possible. And he basically wrecks games very quickly if they don't have an answer. In Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem requires an Ancient Gear Golem and 2 Ancient Gear monsters, so you do need to have Ancient Gear Golem, unlike the other ones. He must be fusion summoned. If he attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing. And when he attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell and trap cards until the end of the damage step, which isn't the most useful. But if he is destroyed, you can target one Ancient Gear Golem in your graveyard and special summon it, ignoring its summoning conditions. So, if you obviously have to use Ancient Gear Golem to summon him, you can then special summon one back when it is destroyed, giving you a bit of defense, or also allowing you to make a comeback if they had only temporarily increased their attack power to get over this 4,400 beat fest. I mean, look at that other hand. He's got a big old fist, and he's got like a 3-claw prong thing to kill you with. It's menacing. And now we have Ancient Gear Megaton Golem. This is your secondary guy. This is another guy you will go into probably almost as much as Giant if you can't get your 4 materials. He only requires 3 Ancient Gear monsters, and when he attacks, your opponent cannot activate spell trap effects until the end of the damage step. If he was fusion summoned using 2 or more Ancient Gear Golem or Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound as material, it can attack up to that many times during each battle phase. which is pretty strong if you use a lot of them. I tend to usually, when fusion summoning him, it's usually at the end of the Wyvern play. Not very often am I using Ancient Gear Golem or Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound, but it does show up on occasion, but you do need to use more than one, because its effect specifically says that, because otherwise he would still just get one attack. Now, he also has a special summoning thing that if he, fusion summoned, leaves his owner's control because of an opponent's card effect, that can be sending him to the graveyard, that can be just banishing him, as long as he leaves the field. That does not include tributing, because that is a cost usually. But you can special summon one Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. Which means if you summon this 3,300 Beat Fest over here, look at those many hands of beating power, he will then float into Ultimate to beat down even more. And last but not least of the fusion monsters, and basically relevant extra deck monster so far, is Ancient Gear Howitzer. This one requires 2 Ancient Gears to make. So you have a 2, you have a 3, and you have the more important 4. He is unaffected by other card effects. Yay! So basically the best way to remove him is beating over him or tributing over him, which most people will be forced to beat over this little 1,000 attack power, 1,800 defense power wee little folk. During your main phase, you can inflict 1,000 points of damage to your opponent. You can only use that effect once per turn. And that is a hard once per turn, unfortunately. So you cannot cycle him to keep doing burn damage, unfortunately. Now, when he is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon one Ancient Gear monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. So, a kind of weak setup play you can do if you are forced to go first and you cannot access your bigger, stronger monsters, or don't want to go into them because you basically don't want to let your opponent blow them up with a Raigek or something of that nature, except for you, Giant, but they could kaiju him. If you don't want to take that risk, you can always just go into Ancient Gear Howitzer, let them destroy him on their turn through attacking or something, and special summon one of your Ancient Gear Golem or Ancient Gear Golem Ultimate Pound. And that will allow you to mostly set up for your next fusion play, or just start beating them in the face with a 3,000 attack power beater. Now, since the archetype is made up of Earth monsters, there is Mrs. Radiant, but I rarely go into her, and don't think I did the entire time. And you're rarely going to go into multiple fusion monsters, so... And Lanphalinkus is here because he's a generic link, too. This extra deck is not exactly the most well thought out past the fusions. I did the whole replay section with Starving Venom in here. I can't even summon Starving Venom unless if I got both Chaos Maxes. Or if I got Chaos Max. Why do I keep trying to make you blue eyes? If I had both Ancient Gear Giants out and decided I wanted to screw myself over. Originally I did have Polymerization in this deck too, but enough about what I had in this deck. This is the deck profile that I used. You saw how well it worked. You do need to look out for hand traps, so a suggestion I could make if you want to make this deck a little bit better off overall is I would take out the Ancient Gear Workshops, or lower the number of them, and add in Called by the Graves to help you deal with hand traps. That will definitely help out in the long run, because Ash Blossom can kind of put your turn in kaput mode. Because there's nothing like summoning a Wyvern to be hit by an Ash Blossom and basically just have to hope you can either fusion summon Howitzer or Megaton, or just pass your turn and hope they don't OTK the OTK deck. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And the next Let's Build is already in production and getting ready to go. I will see you guys in the next video. If you have a deck you would like to see built, put it down there in the comments section, including what level of play you would like to see it at. Would you like to see a more competitive deck? Would you like to see a more casual deck? Would you like to see an extreme budget deck? I kind of enjoy doing that. I'm thinking about doing another one here soon. Just put it down, and I will check it out and building it. I will see you guys later, and hey, have fun!